Welcome to the CFB Dynasty podcast with hosts Matt Knowles, Brian McElfresh, and Doug Gravely.
How you doing out there, everybody in CFBDynasty.com land? It's time for a semifinal college fantasy football playoff edition. As always, my name is Matt Knowles, and I'm here alongside the purveyor of prognostication and predictions, the soothsayer of statistics, the one and only Brian McElfresh. Brian, how you doing, man?
Ridiculous. It's great. It's great. I squeaked by into the playoffs in the home league, so got the win last week, and now I'm in the semifinal, and I'm pretty excited this week to face a team that I beat just a couple weeks ago, Uncle Joe, and it's going to be just so interesting how, if you watched the Thursday Night Football game last night in Cleveland and got to hear all the great Jameis Winston quotes, snow's going to affect our fantasy semifinals all up in Big Ten country.
Well, and I can tell you, for those of you that don't know, we do something called Pick Your Poison in the CFB Dynasty Home League and in the Pro League, where if you're the number one seed coming in, you get a pick between the two guys that won in the first round. And I basically got to choose, do I get a railroad spike driven into my eye, or do I lay on a bed of nails and have somebody hit me with a sledgehammer? I got two terrible choices because BMAC and Mike Davis, who both have humongously good teams, were my two choices. If I could have picked Uncle Joe, I would have picked Uncle Joe, but he was the number 2 seed, so I couldn't pick him. But basically, I had to go with Mike Davis. Why did I go with Mike Davis? Because even though BMAC talks about squeaking into the playoffs, he was the hottest team at the end of the season, and you would have to be a straight-up dope to pick BMAC. BMAC is going with Jalen Milroe. He's got Marquez Cooper, Jeremiah Love as his 2 running backs. He's got Keyshawn Johnson for Western Kentucky, Josh Kelly for Texas Tech, Damon Ward for North Texas. Then he's got LaQuint Allen and Elijah Arroyo. That is a monster team, especially if Milroe can put up the kind of numbers he did in the last couple of weeks. One of the big things that he just mentioned about the weather, having Jeremiah Love and Notre Dame running back, that's going to be huge because normally snow games are going to favor running games. And there's a picture going around this morning of Notre Dame Stadium completely snowed in from the blizzard, and how they're like, we hope we can host a playoff game in this nonsense. Don't get me wrong. I don't feel like I have a good chance against old Mike Davis. What do you think, BMAC? If you look at the lineups, you got me versus Rutgers, NC State versus Rutgers there. I've already had a couple of guys play, Kevin Concepcion, who's just been falling off the table, Krishan McCray, and then my NC State defense. I really didn't have another defensive play this week. I was not happy with that game last night. What do you think about this lineup? Who would you take in that game between me and Mike Davis?
You know, if we get into the running backs that you have here, as we look forward at the rankings, you have number 1, and it's not Genty. You have Dylan Sampson at number 1 because he's been on a tear. He's been great. He's averaging 26 points a game in fantasy this year, and they're projected 47. So obviously he's not going to play that full game. He's not going to actually get that many points probably, but hey, he's projected 35. Genty's projected 34, and he's our number 2. And then you just flex in the number 9 running back, Amarian Hampton, projected 24. So you're going to get projected over 100 fantasy points out of running backs alone. And then when we get to our shootouts of the week segment, you've got a quarterback from one of the shootouts of the week. And then we'll just have to see how your wide receivers do this week. Jack Beck's been good, but Jalen Moss and Ao Maynor against Cal on the road is going to be a tough one. So I feel like me and you kind of together, we kind of know we're going to get a pretty good go out of our running backs and our quarterback. But what we get out of our receivers will kind of dictate if we move on to the next round or not. It's going to be tough for both of us.
And for those of you out there wondering how in the world I could get Ashton Genty and Dylan Sampson and Amari Hampton all on the same team in a 12-team league. This is a dynasty league, college to pro. So I've actually had all three of those guys since they were freshmen. So that was just one of those things I kind of hit on all three of those guys. And it really, helped me out quite a bit that they actually all hit at the same time. Those guys hopefully are all going to go pro at the same time. It's going to help with my pro team that's definitely hurting right now. But that's how you can get a team like that all in a 12-team league with a bunch of experts.
Yeah, but I will say, looking at my matchup with Joe, it's just going to be interesting to see how the snow affects it. So, like, okay, Notre Dame hosts Army, 7:00 at night. It's gonna be snowy for sure. He's got Riley Leonard, who's a running quarterback. Definitely runs better than he throws. And I've got Jeremiah Love. He's also got the Notre Dame defense against Army. Man, I don't know if there's an advantage for me there or not with the snow. But as you look over to like Ohio State, I think big downgrade for all their wide receivers and upgrade for the running backs because of the weather.
Yeah.
Any of those teams that pass.
Yeah, you guys have got an interesting matchup because he's got Restrepo for Miami, you've got Arroyo for Miami, so it's like, where are those balls at Miami going to get thrown? It's gonna be an interesting matchup for you guys, man. I feel like you've got the edge, but you never know. I know Uncle Joe is on a 4-game losing streak right now, so I know you got to be hoping that he keeps that up. We go from there.
Yeah, for sure.
So why don't we roll over to the Masters League right now? And when you go over to the Masters, why don't you pull that up on the screen? You can look at the matchups really quick. And people will be like, wow, how these guys already have all these points scored. So in the Masters League, you got Mike Dillingham going up against CFB Tucker. That is a matchup that is literally decades in the making. Guys that go back all the way 20 years playing basketball together. Then you got Saucy Dossie versus Ruskers FC. I do like seeing that our CFB home league has got 3 of the 4 participants in the semis. It's just showing that these guys truly do know what is going on in the world. But Ruskers, Ruskers is also Rutgers in our league. So he's in the semis in both leagues, man. Just shows what kind of a quality coach he is. And then you look up there at the top, you see that all those guys have got those purple scores that are already scores in like the 130s up to 207. In the Open League and the Masters League, people can still fight to get promotion or to stave off relegation. So in this league, everybody that didn't make the playoffs is still hoping to get one of the 2 spots to stay in the Masters League. And it's a combination of your points total in weeks 12, 13, and 14. So the week 12 points that a team scored have been moved over to week 13. So basically that's what the scores were from the previous week. And right now, myself, whose team in Sim Serpents, and the Southeast Northwest U are the 2 at the top right now, but it's a 3-week total. So it doesn't matter. Doug Dynasty can jump up there from the bottom. Maverick could jump up and have 2 big weeks and still steal that one of those spots. We'll have to see what happens. BMAC, who do you think is without getting too deep into it, who do you think is going to be the guys in that league that have the best chance of making it to the finals in the Masters League?
This is a tough one. All right, Saucy won it all last year, and we've represented that on the website, and he's got a good shot at being up there again, man. With Judkins, like I said, that's going to be a running back heavy game. Jackson Dart at Florida is an interesting start. We'll see how good that passing attack is for Ole Miss. They do have the benefit of coming off a bye, which what we've seen this year in that first and that second bye is a big advantage to the teams coming off the bye. I like Saucy to win it over Ruskers. And then if I'm projecting out here, this is a tough one. This is a really good matchup here. Dillingham against Tucker.
It's tough. It's tough.
It's a tough one. If I had to project, like, this is one where the freaking defense could make a difference, where Dillingham's got Clemson against the Citadel, but he's got Boise against Wyoming.
Yeah.
So I think one of those will make the difference, and I'm going to go. Oh, that's tough. It's really tough. Toss-up.
It's tough because you look down the line, and I feel like Tucker has really built up some good running backs. Trey Stewart from Jacksonville State has been crushing it.
He has.
Caleb Johnson been
Martin's coming
crushing
on
it
too.
Yeah, I mean, that's like you said, it could come down to the defenses. Clemson versus the Citadel could be the difference in that game. But if I was a betting man, I might have to take Tucker in this one. But man, I'd feel
half a point.
Yeah, I'd feel dirty about doing that because I feel like Dillingham could just as easily win that thing. All right, let's roll over to the Open League. In the Open League, you've got two teams. You got the semis, then you've got a bunch of guys that are trying to still also get promoted. So all those purple scores are guys that did not make the playoffs, but are trying to also get promoted to the Masters League next year. You got in the semis, you got Victoria's Secret versus Atlantal 1983. I think that Atlantal has got, man, both of those teams are really good, man. Again, it's the same thing. Really good teams there.
Yeah, we'll see. Like on the snow side of things for Ty Felton, that one's going to be tough. A really tough matchup already with Iowa. But then if it's snowing too, how are you going to be able to pass the ball? Other thing too with that snow game, if you watched it last night with this like blizzard going through up there, it's super windy, so it just makes passing impossible. Not impossible, but difficult. Like you could see the shift last night with the team that was passing into the wind versus with the wind. Neither of them are easy when it's blowing 25 miles an hour, but one's easier than the other. I'd say it's tough.
It's tough. I feel like in the other one, in Steve 77063 versus Gators win, I feel like Steve has definitely got the advantage with Klubnik and Hampton. He's got Lockhart for San Jose State, but then you look at Gators win, Genty, Nick Nash, Damon Ward, Jeremiah Love. Man,
Warren.
I love the fact that all these semifinals there's 4 teams in the 3 leagues, so 12 teams, all have put really good teams out there. There's no scrub team, nobody that just lucked into it. You got teams that really put together good squads that are being represented out here in these semis.
You can see why they're there. Yeah.
Yep.
I'd go, if I had to pick, we need to check back on this next week, but I'd go Gators win and Eantle, however you say it. Lantle,
I will
Eantle. I don't know if that's an
I'm thinking Gators win, and I'll go Leantle as well. I'll go with that one as well. All right, and I know this is a college football show, but we got to talk about this really quick. News that just came through the wire while we're on the show. The Giants not only benched Daniel Jones, who just got a ridiculous extension. Today, they seconds ago outright cut him from their squad.
Whoa.
That's cut him. That is insane. I want to understand the salary cap ramifications for that. I want to understand, is this a move so that maybe some team can go and get him as a backup? Maybe they're hoping some team is going to go pick him up and eat some of that contract. That's definitely a news story we're going to be paying attention to, but that is incredible that a guy's going to go get an obscene contract like that. I don't know if you guys watched HBO and watched the Giants in the off season, and they talked about rolling with Daniel Jones. That makes those conversations like that much more silly in their front office. Man, that is
I can bring this back to college football, because what's going to be interesting too is you saw just maybe 2 days ago, Bryce Underwood flipped from LSU to Michigan, and Barstool Presidente made a big donation to make that happen.
Yes.
So what's going to happen when these guys just bust?
Yeah, I mean, if you're Underwood, and they're talking about he got $11-12 million to go sign college-wise, why are those guys going to be going to the pros? They're just going to stay there and keep making their NIL money. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It used to be where the guys coming into the NFL got the silly contracts at the draft. Now they're getting silly NIL money just to go sign out of high school. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, man, that's crazy. That got us sidetracked a little bit. My goodness, Daniel Jones signing a huge contract, and now he is out. He is out. The New York Giants.
I haven't
Amazing.
played Madden in a while, but I know that really poorly affects the salary cap in franchise mode. That sucks.
All right, so let's see. Now we can get our butts back onto some college. Wow, that was just crazy. I did not expect that at all. That was nuts. All right, so how about we go to some quick news and notes? There's not a lot of news and notes right now this week. We can go hit those things real quick.
News and notes around college football.
All right, got a bunch of Oklahoma news. Javonte Barnes is questionable for Oklahoma coming into this week. Nick Anderson, again, out for Oklahoma, probably the most disappointing player of the year. He played 4 snaps all year. Why can't they just say the man's out for the year? Stop telling us every week he's out. He's out for the year. Deion Burks for Oklahoma, he is doubtful. Trey Harris and quarterback Jackson Dart, Mississippi, probable versus UF. Now they're saying Jackson Dart probably going to play. And Caden Robinson, wide receiver for App State, big player this year, affecting some fantasy playoffs. He is out for the season with his injury. Not a lot more news and notes coming out. Make sure you're looking at the socials. If there's any stuff that comes out before the games on Saturday start, we'll get it up there for you on CFB Dynasty, where we help you take your college fantasy experience to the next level.
Caden Robinson news got me, man. When I logged in to just check my lineup, make sure I had my backup set in Fantrax, and to see that red flag with the little plus sign in the middle of it, oh, brutal that he's out for the year. My wide receivers are just patchwork, so we'll see how it affects my playoffs, but that's rough, man. Hate those end of season or season-ending injuries anytime, but obviously at the end of the year in fantasy mode, where that just affects your whole season.
Why don't we roll over to the rankings, go look at what we have on the schedule when it comes to the algorithm, see what the algorithm has done for rankings this week.
So some of these games where it didn't even have a spread, we kind of made a little mock spread of what we kind of think it would be if you were able to bet this game. So like Clemson Citadel, I don't think you can bet that game, but so these games are affected by that a little bit, where you see Klubnik up there at number 1. Obviously he's a great start with, you see his 50-yard touchdown run last week, and just he's been consistently good and improving. Like to see that from the Clemson quarterback there. He's averaging 27 a game, projected 41 this week. However, I would imagine with the mismatch that him and Lenora Sellers, who are 1-2, probably don't play into the fourth quarter. And then we've got Carson Beck against UMass. So that's why he's up there at number 3.
He's probably not playing to the fourth as well. Mateer is going to be the first one on the list. It looks like he might have a full game.
Yeah, so the projections, understand that. Obviously, that perspective matters quite a bit. So, yeah, Mateer, Cam Ward, Chandler Morris. All right, Chandler Morris at 6. Damon Ward, I have the wide receiver, and I need him to have a nice game this week. It's projected to be a close game. It's only a 3-point spread. He's been really up and down lately. What are your thoughts there on
the last 2 weeks have been brutal for Chandler Morris. I actually have him in the semis in a home league, and I actually benched him for Shedeur Sanders, who is one of the hottest quarterbacks in the country right now. I feel like he's got a chance to turn it around. I think that Army game really threw him off, but yeah, he's definitely is not performing the way you'd want him to be performing going into a playoff run.
It's going to be interesting. We haven't done well when we go against the algorithm. So Chandler Morris we have as number 6 projected, Shedeur at number 21. So that's quite a big gap there. It's about a touchdown different in like fantasy speak there.
So one of the interesting things we have on here, we always like to take a look at guys that have already played versus what the algorithm said. One thing the algorithm is unable to do is account for crazy changes in the game plan. Haynes King for Georgia Tech is at number 12.
Yep.
The game plan last night for Georgia Tech was to put their true freshman quarterback Shiloh in, and then Haynes King only came in as a change of pace player. So he only attempted 3 passes, and he came in and rushed the ball. I think it was 18 attempts. And so that was a big change up at the algorithm, and knew that was going to be the game plan. I think that Haynes King would have been dropped significantly, but if you looked at his performances in weeks past, he would have been up there, because that was definitely not the norm for what Georgia Tech did. They went with the true freshman and allowed him to play the game, and just had Haynes King come in. So that just goes to show you sometimes what can you do. The algorithm can only go with the numbers; it can't go with a specific game plan for the game.
Yeah, and he's been hurt. I think he was a game time decision, if I remember correctly. So that does stink. I mean, it hurt all the receivers. Eric Singleton had a good game, though. He ended up getting over 100 yards. Didn't score, but that's one of those, when I saw the news of Caden Robinson being out, I was like, all right, I got to find somebody. And it was either him, Singleton, Keyshawn Johnson, or Carnell Tate coming off a 2-touchdown game. So I went with Johnson. So we'll see. But Singleton would have got me 13 points, and I think we're half PPR kind of league. But I'll round out the top 10 there, because after Chandler Morris at 6, we have Jordan McLeod at 7, projected to score 27. Giovanni Lopez also projected to score 27.57 there. Colton Joseph for Old Dominion, and then Josh Hoover at number 10. Does anything else stand out to you at quarterback? And also, do you want to comment on I would like to hear you on Milroe versus Dart for me. So I have both of those. Dart is projected QB 28. They're on the road, coming off of a bye week at Florida. They get Trey Harris back, and they're a lot healthier of a team. But he's only projected by the algorithm 22 points. The swamp will be.
I definitely like Milroe there. I think Dart coming off an injury, he's been on the injury report all week. Milroe had such a big game the last time out. I feel like it would be very difficult for you to bench Milroe after the kind of numbers he put up. Now, granted, most of them are rushing numbers, but still numbers are numbers.
Yep.
So yeah, I definitely feel like if you, the the prognosticator, the purveyor of these predictions, went against the algorithm there and you lost, you'd have a lot of explaining to do there, Lucy.
All right, one more question as we go to quarterbacks here. What's your confidence level starting Caden Veldkamp this week at Liberty?
So my confidence level in starting Caden Veldkamp is this. I've got in the CFB home semis, I've got Chandler Morris at 6. I've got Caden Veldkamp at 20. I've got Shedeur Sanders at 21. I'm starting Shedeur Sanders at 21. That's my confidence level. I would still consider playing Caden Veldkamp for sure, but I feel like Shedeur out of those 3 is the one that is on the angle upwards right now. And I think that's what you've got to look at a lot of times when you're going into the playoffs, is who is somebody with the arrow pointed upwards compared to who is somebody we're hoping to see rebound. And I think that Shedeur is the one with the angle upwards. So that's why I'd be playing Sanders over Veldkamp.
Yeah. I don't see any of these top quarterbacks being affected by snow. Maybe Aiden Childs against Purdue. He's there at number 11. Potentially Garrett Green. I'm not sure if the snow's getting into West Virginia or not. I really don't know, but that's a potential one right there. But yeah, I'll roll on down to running backs here, and we've talked about the top ones. So we got Sampson, and I do hate that we have these beat downs scheduled at the end of the year. I know the strength of schedule is rough in the SEC and the Big Ten, but yeah, having beat downs here in the fantasy playoffs isn't ideal for fantasy. But you got Sampson, Genty, Harvey. No surprise with those top 3. And then we got Rocket Sanders at 4, but that's really South Carolina's playing Wofford.
Yeah, playing Wofford for sure.
Maffa at 5. That's because Clemson's playing the Citadel. And then you've got Caleb Johnson in a potential snow game on the road at Maryland. Got to think there's a lot of unders that are going to happen if you're betting this weekend. Dean Connors is there at number 7, and Marquez Cooper at Utah State is at number 8, projected 24 points. Amarian Hampton at number 9, Scatterbo at number 10.
I think that every one of those, if you've got them, you got to get them in your lineup. There's no question about that. You have to have those in there.
Yeah, the next 2 are also affected by probable. Well, not the next 2 aren't probable beatdowns, but ETN there at number 11 is. I have a huge lack of trust. Is he going to play that game? I'm not actually sure on that one. I know he missed the last game, so we'll see how he's not going to get enough touches against UMass to get 23 fantasy points unless he just gets a couple long touchdowns. But then LaQuint Allen against UConn, a great start this week. Nothing really stands out this week. Got Braden Bennett up there at number 18 in a potential shootout mode there. It looks pretty cut and dry to me.
Yeah, I think the running backs are doing exactly what you'd want the algorithm to do, sifting everybody to the top that should be there and ranking them pretty well down. I think CJ Campbell for FAU at 26 is an interesting play against UNC Charlotte. So that could be one where, FAU is not a great team this year, but when you have them playing against an absolutely outmatched opponent, he might be able to put some big numbers up.
Let me ask you confidence meter on 2 guys that, would have helped you get into the position you're in now if you're in the playoffs. Kyle Monangai, DJ Giddens.
So Monangai, I think Monangai, I still have got confidence in him. Biggest issue with Monangai is he took that dirty hit, with the concussion hit, and has he been the same since that? I'm not really sure, but Monangai is definitely still putting up solid numbers, so I feel some confidence in him. Giddens, if I had to pick one of the 2, I'd pick Monangai first.
Yep. I'll roll on down to wide receivers then. One of the things that was painful that I just remembered in the home league, in the matchup last week between William and Mike Davis, when William lost to Mike Davis, but he would have won if he didn't make that trade for dealing Mateer. And we talked about it on the show. He made the trade, and then later on he got beat by the player that he traded. And it was like a clear, he would have won by 20 plus, no matter what other quarterback Mike Davis started if he had Mateer. So,
yep. Hey, that's what happens. That's what happens.
Can't have too many receivers. Okay, so at the top, at wide receiver, we've got Nick Nash. He's been up there all season long. He's averaging 27 a game. And, man, that's one where I really regret not drafting him late in ours or picking him up week 1. But William got him. So he's projected pretty much right on average 26 fantasy points this week. San Jose State's projected to score about 4 touchdowns against UNLV. That'll be a good game at home. Low key, but really good game there. So Antonio Williams, here's the mismatch that's affecting the projection of 24 for him. And then Amari Kelly at number 3, Adrian Norton at number 4, Jamal Pritchett at number 5, Ted McMillan 6, your boy Jack Beck at 7, Brennan Presley at 8, Trey Harris back in the lineup is projected at number 9, and then DT Sheffield, which I hope is Damon Ward at 10, projected 19.
What do you think about Adrian Norton, the algorithm pushing him all the way up to number 4? If you look at his numbers, last week he had his least number of targets in the last few weeks, but he had his most number of yards. His stats are interesting. He's no less than 9.8 points, and he's got up to 25 points, 26 points in the last 5 weeks. So he's definitely getting a lot of activity. He's getting a lot of balls thrown his way. I find it very interesting that an Akron Zip wide receiver is all the way up there at 4. That's going to be one for us to pay attention to and see if he's going to have a big game versus Kent there.
Yeah, he's only finished as a wide receiver 1, meaning in the top 12 one time all season. So I would say it's against the odds, but we will see because they're going to score. They're projected to score more points than they're normally projected or what they average on the season. So at 30 points, Norton's a great play this week. And McCray, who already played, is at 14. Savion Williams, who's the multi-purpose player there for TCU, is a great start. He's at 13. Restrepo, super consistent all year. I think he's Cam Ward's favorite target, a future NFL wide receiver. Restrepo there at 12. They're hosting Wake, which should be a pretty easy win. Now, let's see, that score is projected, 44.5 to 20. It only helps fantasy when you've got Ward, Restrepo, etc., because their defense sucks. So Wake's going to get theirs. It's going to keep the offense in the game. So that'll be nice. It should be great. Any Miami player is full go. Also a great kind of roster to pick one of those like low dollar players from DraftKings or FanDuel.
Interesting seeing a couple of guys that are Heisman in the Heisman discussion being where they're at. Travis Hunter at 17. Then you've got Jeremiah Smith at 27. Just goes to show, just because you're the Heisman conversation doesn't mean you're always going to be at the tops of the list from a fantasy perspective. And you got Jeremiah Smith playing against probably one of the biggest stories of the season in Indiana, who is, people talk about their strength of schedule, but they've been blowing everybody out. They have blown out everybody this year. So that's going to be probably the game of the weekend right there to take a look at, is Ohio State and Indiana.
Is that big noon kickoff? Is that what that is? Probably.
I think so. Let's go double check.
So that's a potential snow game. So you would think it's going to favor running backs. But if it's at noon, hey, maybe it'll be all right. Maybe they'll have some sunshine and it'll just be cold. But definitely something to pay attention to in some of these games as far as snow goes. I'll pop down to receiver while you look that up. Tight end. Got Fannin at number 1. No surprise. Holden Willis. 2. Tyler Warren for Penn State. He's been incredible, averaging 18 a game. They're on the road at Minnesota, so Penn State's only projected to score 29 this week, but I'm sure he'll get a couple of them. I'm going against him in Uncle Joe's lineup, so we'll see there. Joshua Simon there for South Carolina. He's not normally up there. He's averaging 9 a game, but they're projected to score so much, so it's bumped him up a little bit. Hey, they're going to score, so it's possible he gets a couple touchdowns early. Loveland there at 5, Briningstool at 6, Koziel at 7, Gadsden at 8, and then Jack Andrews rounds it out at 10.
I don't want to belabor the point, but one of the things this year has been a lot nicer with tight ends in compared to the last couple of years. You look at guys like Koziel and Gadsden that in years past, they would have been number 1, 2 in the top 3 like every single week. But it just feels like there's a lot more tight ends this year that are getting significant numbers that can actually change the outcome of a game. So it's not like it's just a dead position this year. If you don't have one of those top 2 or 3, you've got, all the way down to Keithy at 10 that are affecting games in a positive fashion.
Yep, absolutely. And really, we thought Gaston going into the season was going to be the far and away number 1. And he's not been bad, but he's certainly not that. Ty Ward and Harold Fannin have really kind of taken that over.
So there we go. So that's the rankings right now. Obviously, if you're in a position where you are in the semis, you might want to go and get yourself a subscription to the CFBDynasty.com site. So that way you can go and you can go manipulate those numbers the way you need it to make sure you got the right lineup. And if you're in the semis and you don't have a subscription right now, what are you doing? What are you waiting for, man? You need to be doing that so you can win that trophy. You can win that t-shirt. You need it.
If they don't have it, they're in the semis. They might not need it.
Man, don't listen to that guy. I say go do it. All right, so I think now it's time for a couple of shootouts of the week.
Shootouts of the week.
All right, so we've got 3 on the docket this week. Not a ton of shootouts. West Virginia versus UCF. I'm not the weatherman. That one could totally be affected by the weather, which won't affect UCF and RJ Harvey at all. West Virginia and really their running quarterback, it might not affect them as much either. That does play a little bit into my DFS lineup, but man, all these DFS lineups, all these semifinal matchups are going to be affected by snow. It's going to bite some people, and it's going to sting. I definitely remember, because I live in Florida, and I was reminded by the Thursday night football snow game about the weather, but it's just now like 55 or whatever here this week. We've been in the 80s. So sometimes I forget, and I am like behind on paying attention to weather, and the game pops up and I see it, and it's like 25 miles an hour and rainy or snowy, and it's like, oh my gosh. I do want a tool for that will automatically alert me. But anyways, Kansas against Colorado is another shootout of the week, and then the last one is Oklahoma State, Texas Tech.
All right, so that's some good little predictions there. Hard to see I'm trying to see if I can find some weather predictions for some of these college football games. Not having great luck to see who's going to get affected. Yeah, it's supposed to get into the 30s here in Central Florida tonight. And if it's in the 30s in Central Florida, then it's going to be straight miserable if you just go a little bit north of here. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of games. I know even last night, NC State, Georgia Tech playing at Georgia Tech was getting affected by the wind. So I would expect there to be a lot of games this weekend that are going to have some major impacts from the weather, and who knows what that's going to do to your fantasy stats.
Bring them down. That's what it'll do.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you got a running back that can break tackles.
Right.
So how about we now go and take a look at our brisket locks?
It's time for the brisket lock.
All right, so brisket locks. So last week, BMAC and I did not do very well when it came to the brisket locks. He had Katron Allen from Penn State. Dude had 6 carries for 20 yards, 4 receptions for 44 yards, and a score. 14.4 points for Katron Allen. Yeah, kind of there. I had DJ Lagway from UF, 13 completions on 26 passes, 226 yards and a TD. He was only at 13.04 points. Because of performances like that, the verdict is they get to watch me and BMAC eat our brisket, and they get to wonder what it's like to have a plate of their own. I call last week a wash. What do you think, BMAC?
I would give myself the advantage, which I don't normally do, but because I had a running back go for more points than a quarterback, you expect a little more out of a quarterback. I would think.
I agree.
14 is meh. Like we get to go to some third tier brisket place to get some. It's not.
I can feel that.
Good.
I can feel that. I can roll with that. Definitely not
I'll share some with you though.
Yeah, I can roll with that. So how about this week, BMAC? Who do you got this week as your brisket lock?
All right. So a lot of people, weren't happy how low I had Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins ranked, the Ohio State running back duo, one of the best duos in the country. But there's just not enough balls to go around, and that's how it played out. And they've not been like running back 1. They've not been running back 2s most of the time. But this week, I'm going with Judkins. He's projected at RB 61. But because it's a weather game, I think this is a great one for him and the running backs, and Travion too. But I'm playing against Travion, so I'm kind of willing it to be Judkins, if you know what I mean. So Judkins this week. How about you?
We both have picked guys that are way down the list. You got RB 61. I got Justin Lockhart from San Jose State. In our rankings, he's the number 37 wide receiver. Last week, he had his best week this season. 10 receptions on 16 targets versus Boise State, 172 yards and a touchdown. So he was going up against probably one of the best defenses he's going to see this year, and he had 16 targets. Every week for the last month, he's had 10, 15, 11, 15. The last week, almost 30 points. I feel like Justin Lockhart is going to continue to have a big performance this week. So I say if you can get him in your lineup. And that's me putting my money where my mouth is. I did pick him up in the Masters League, and I do have him in my lineup. I think that he's going to have a chance to go off.
Sweet. Yeah, we shall see, and we'll report back to you guys next week. Is it time to battle?
Yeah, man. Let's get some DFS battle going on.
All right.
DFS host battle.
All right, so last week I got a bone to pick with BMAC.
I'm sorry.
I was crushing him all Saturday long. I'm down at PalmCon in Port St. Lucie. I was checking my scores. I'm like, man, I got this in the bag. I am crushing BMAC. I am crushing William Dong. And then later on in the night, time had gone on. I'm like, you know what? Let me go back and check that thing. And somehow BMAC, the freaking snake that he is, slithered on up, stole the DFS battle from me at the very last minute. I was disgusted, felt disrespected. How dare you do that, BMAC?
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. It was a good one, but yeah, I had some late help. I had a lot of my guys go late, but we also had a couple duds too, where I had Isaac Brown for Louisville. He did nothing at all. But I had a lot of those little fire emojis next to mine. We both had Bond, who was 8.8. Texas in general didn't have like a great game or whatever. So overall, we both did better than we did the week prior, and let's see what we got this week. I'll throw it up on the screen.
All right.
All right. So talk me through. You're the first one there on the left. What you got?
All right, so this week was tough for me, man. I felt like there was not a lot of value picks that were out there, so really had to struggle to figure out which ballers I wanted in the lineup, and then which positions I kind of had to take a guy that is going to be a serious flyer. So Garrett Green from West Virginia, got him at 7,800. I felt like from a quarterback perspective, that was the best value. Obviously, there's better quarterbacks out there, but to be able to make my lineup work, that's where I had to go. I got Taylor from Minnesota, 8,500. He was the top dollar amount guy on my roster this week. Nick Singleton, a guy that we all love, that just has not performed the way we want him to, at 6,300. I got Stribling from Oklahoma State at 66. Got Will Shepard from Colorado, who's really coming on, at 5,600. Got Bond again from Texas at 5,000. I still think that's a big value right there to get him at 5. Got Morin from Wake versus Miami. He had some good stats recently. He had him at 5,200. And then my super flex, got DJ Lagway again, because I definitely don't want to make the mistake again about not having a quarterback in the super flex. So he was the best super flex quarterback I could fit into that lineup. What about you, BMAC? What do you got?
Yeah, it's different. This was the most difficult one to set for me as well. I like Singleton, obviously. For you, I like, talent-wise, that's a great value. And will it come out against Minnesota in what's going to be a snow game? Probably. We'll see. So I went quite different, where in my super flex, I don't have a quarterback. I do like the value of Lagway at 5,000, versus me in my super flex having Travis Hunter at 9,000. But being a Heisman contender, it's clear they are going to feature him and they are going to get him a touchdown. So I feel really confident in that. Hopefully it turns into 2 touchdowns or 3. I've got Jalen Daniels at quarterback, one of our shootouts of the week. If it becomes a snow game in Kansas, he'll be able to run the ball, and that's totally fine. 6,900 for him. Ollie Gordon at 8,700. Jaheim White, and what could be a snowy game at 4,600. I felt great with that value. Elijah Badger, for the Gators at 5,100, had more than 10 targets in the second half alone, I think, last week. So I look for that to continue. Obviously, the weather's going to be perfect there for that one, as well as a perfect weather game for Josh Kelly, Texas Tech, in a shootout. And then I've got Carnell Tate, who when I set this lineup Thursday morning, I was not really thinking of the weather. So really don't like that pick, honestly, at 5,500. He's very touchdown dependent, but because this is for the show, I will not edit it. And then I've got Hansen, the tight end for the Gators, very touchdown dependent, but 3,200, so I could fit Travis Hunter in there at Superflex.
3,200 in the Superflex, man. I love it. I love it. That's definitely a very interesting decision right there. But again, this was one of the more difficult weeks. I feel like DraftKings is doing a much better job this year of not leaving a bunch of guys down in the lower dollar amounts that are really good values. I know last year we were always finding guys in the mid fours, the low fives that we could just fill our lineups with and really do some damage. But this year it seems like they've done a much better job to make it a lot more difficult. All right, so BMAC, is there anything else you want to talk about today? There's no comments from the peanut gallery this week, which is pretty interesting, maybe because we're doing a Friday show. Any comments that you got for the show for this week?
Yeah, not really. Just good luck to everybody out there. I got some tickets a little bit ago. I'll be heading up to the Ole Miss Florida game with the fam. Weather has finally turned from 80s to 50s, which is really nice. So I just look forward to enjoying some football, some food, and hanging out. What you got going on this weekend?
Well, luckily, all I've got is some refereeing on Sunday, watching some football. This is the first. Today is the first day since last Monday that I don't have either a convention or travel or soccer refereeing or all of the above happening at the same time. So my legs and my hamstrings are definitely like, man, sit around your house and do nothing and just watch some Friday night football and Saturday football and have some fun.
That's right. Absolutely.
All right, everybody. This has been the CFB Dynasty podcast. My name is Matt Knowles. And again, on behalf of the purveyor of the prognostication over here, Mr. Brian McElfresh, thank you for joining us. We will see you next week right here when we talk about championship games. It'll be the championship edition of the CFBDynasty.com podcast. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the CFB Dynasty podcast. Help us out by subscribing on YouTube and reviewing us on your podcast network.